Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Munadira Vanachari Munadira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Munatira Vanachari Munatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Hari Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from the first canto of Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, chapter 19, titled The Appearance of Shukadeva Goswami.
15 and then we can chant text 16 together. Tamopayatam pradayantu vipra ganga chatevi tritachitamishe dvijopashrishta kuhakastakshakova dashatvalam kayata vishnugataha. O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way, for I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird, or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created, bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. As soon as one is given up completely under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he is not at all afraid of death. The atmosphere created by the presence of great devotees of the Lord on the bank of the Ganges and Maharaj Parikshit's complete acceptance of the Lord's lotus feet was sufficient guarantee to the king for going back to Godhead. He thus became absolutely free from all fear of death. Text 16. Punascha bhuyat bhagavatyanante.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavate anante.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavatyanante.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavate anante.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim.
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 Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Maitriyastu sarvada namo dvijebhya.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Maitriyastu sarvada namo dvijebhya.
Punascha bhuvat bhagavatyanante.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavati anante.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim.
Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavate anante.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavatyanante.
Prasangascha tat ashayeshu.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Mahatsu yam yam apayami shrishtim.
Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavati anante.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavate anante.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Rati prasangascha tat ashayeshu.
Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim.
Mahatsu yam yam apayami shrishtim.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavati anante. Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu.
Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim. Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Punascha bhuyat bhagavati anante.
Rati prasangascha tadashrayeshu. Mahatsu yam yam upayami shrishtim. Maitriyastu sarvatra namo dvijebhya.
Puna. Again. Cha and Bhuyat. Let it be.
Let it be.
Bhagavati.
Bhagavati.
Unto Lord Shri Krishna.
Unto Lord Shri Krishna.
Anante. Who has unlimited potency. Rati. Attracting. Prasanga. Association. Cha. Also. Tat. His. Ashrayeshu. With those who are his devotees.
Those who are his devotees.
Mahatsu. Within the material creation.
Within the material creation.
Yam yam. wherever Upayami, I may take Srishtim, my birth, Maitri, friendly relation, Astu, let it be, Sarvatra, everywhere, Namaha, my obeisances, Dvijebhyaha, unto the Brahmanas. Translation. Again, offering obeisances unto all you Brahmanas, I pray that if I should again take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all living beings. Purport. That the devotee of the Lord is the only perfect living being is explained herein by Maharaj Parikshit. A devotee of the Lord is no one's enemy, although there may be many enemies of a devotee. A devotee of the Lord does not like to associate with non-devotees, although he has no enmity with them. He desires association with the devotees of the Lord. This is perfectly natural because birds of the same feather mix together. And the most important function of a devotee is to have complete attachment for Lord Shri Krishna, the Father of all living beings. As a good son of the Father behaves in a friendly way with all his other brothers, so also the devotee of the Lord, being a good son of the Supreme Father, Lord Krishna, sees all other living beings in relation with the Supreme Father. He tries to bring back the upstart sons of the Father to a saner stage and to get them to accept the Supreme Fatherhood of God. Maharaj Parikshit was certainly going back to Godhead, but even if he were not to go back, he prayed for a pattern of life which is the most perfect way in the material world. A pure devotee does not desire the company of a personality as great as Brahma, but he prefers the association of a petty living being, provided he is a devotee of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahaguna Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishvare Vrishabhano Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Punascha Bhuyat Bhagavatyanante Rati Prasangas Chatat Asharyeshu Mahatsu Yam Yam Payam Shrishtim Maitriyastu Sarvatra Namo Dvijebhya. Again, offering obeisances unto all you Brahmanas, I pray that if I should again take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all living beings. So here we see described the actual condition of what it means to have a good life in the material world. The devotee is difficult to understand for the materialist because it looks like the devotee has no goal in life. It looks like the devotee is just somehow, what are you doing with your life? You are not investing in the same things that other people are investing in. But now we see the devotee is not without a goal, not at all. The devotee is actually extremely determined. And the devotee is very clear about what exactly it is that he wants in life. And he is working very hard also for that. And here we see, this is what the devotee wants. This is the devotee's idea. This is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to achieve. I want to have complete attachment to Lord Krishna. That is my first desire, that my only attachment is toward Lord Krishna. What I also want is I want the association with his devotees, because I understand that it is only by associating with the devotees that I will be protected. It's only by the association of the devotees that I myself will desire to be a devotee. And also, I would like to have friendly relations with all living beings. So, by nature, try to create peace within this world. We see that Prabhupada, I was recently reading some purports in the 5th canto, and Prabhupada made it very clear how, I was reading, actually not 5th canto, Krishna book, wherein it is explained, we see that Krishna, when at the Rajasuya Yagya that Lord Yudhishthira wanted to perform, then it was a perfect opportunity for Krishna to go fight against Jarasandha. And there in the purport, Prabhupada writes very clearly that that is God's desire, is to maintain peace within this world. It's interesting. Even though peace is not possible ultimately, but at the same time Krishna makes arrangement. That is his desire, to have the people rule, people who are looking for peace. That is part of God's plan, to try to, as much as possible, have friendly relationships between all living beings. Because we see that that is the spiritual world. Spiritual world, there is no envy. So the job of the devotees in this world is to try as much as possible to create a spiritual environment within the material world, even though it is very difficult. But that is what God wants from his devotees in this world. Now, what is very interesting in this verse is that the commentators, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he points out that this verse can be seen either that Maharaj Parikshit is asking for 3 things, which is attachment to Lord Krishna, association with the devotees, and friendly relationships with all living beings. But you can also read it, because at the end he says, Namo Dvijebhya, Sarvatra Namo Dvijebhya. He says, offer my obeisances unto the Brahmanas. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one can also say that he begged for a 4th boon, which is, let I always be respectful towards the Brahmanas. He prayed to be respectful. And it is very interesting because we see that ultimately all these things depends on respect. And we see that Maharaj Parikshit, his problem was, the apparent cause of his misfortune, of being cursed to death, was because for a moment, he lapsed in his respect for the Brahmanas. Even though his whole life he was dedicated towards being respectful towards the Brahmanas, taking care of them. Just for one moment, somehow, by Krishna's arrangement, but from his perspective he saw that his own weakness. He had lapsed into a disrespectful mentality, and great calamity had now befallen upon him. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he is praying, let me in my next life never do this again. Let me in my next life, if I have to take birth again, be respectful towards the Brahmanas. So it is interesting to see that we were recently reading the Madhurya Kadambini in Purandap, and we were reading this section on the offenses, how the obstacles in devotional service, the obstacles towards attaining any of these things, the association of the devotees, attachment to the Lord, and friendly relations with all beings, is the anarthas that arise from various offenses. And there are various sources of offenses. And the different sources of offenses, they have different seriousness to them, and some offenses are more difficult to eradicate than others. There is the seva aparad, the offenses that arise during the performance of our service. But it explains that these things are not so serious. They become purified simply by continuing to practice. Therefore, there is no need to be afraid in the performance of a devotional service that we might make some mistakes. Many people, they are hesitant to participate in devotional service, so they are hesitant to take the opportunities to do certain services out of a fear of doing something wrong. But that is not intelligent. That is actually, that itself is an obstacle, that fear. Because it is by simply performing the service, if it is given to us, very important, if it is given to us, by the moment that the devotees ask us to do something, at that moment we are automatically empowered to be able to perform the service, because it is not something that came from our own request. And even if we make some mistakes in the course of performing that service, it will be okay. We will not get reactions for it. We will be protected. The service itself will purify us, just simply by trying and by making mistakes and whatever. It will be okay. So therefore, the offenses that come in the course of performing devotional service, the mistakes that we make, sometimes we break some rules or we do something wrong or this or that, these things are not so serious. They become very easily purified. The serious offenses are considered to be the offenses against the holy name. But we know that these offenses against the holy name, the 10 offenses, it's not just when we chant, specifically the offenses against the devotees, and the offenses specifically against a very specific devotee, who is the spiritual master. So therefore, these are the difficult things to eradicate. And but what is important to understand is that the only way to eradicate an offense, it is not just by avoiding offense. That is not enough. The opposite of offense is respect. See? You will either be respectful or you will be offensive. That is the only two options. There is no middle ground. Just like in the material world, you are either in Maya or you are in Krishna consciousness. There is no middle ground. Yes, there is mode of goodness, passion and ignorance, so it looks like there's some difference, but actually from the ultimate perspective, no. There is either Krishna consciousness or material consciousness. There is either consciousness that will liberate you or consciousness that will bind you to this world. So therefore, when we also deal with the brahmanas, with the devotees and with the Supreme Lord, there is either respect or there is offense. Then there is offense of different grades of seriousness, but there's only these two things. So the only way really to protect ourselves against offense, against aparad, is by respect. And therefore we see that such a big part of culture, a big part of any culture, is the idea of etiquette. Because etiquette is an external way of showing respect. And it is a good beginning. These external things, even though it might be external, it helps quite a lot. And you can see even in any society, if you would think like where I'm from, in our culture, you would never be able to call a grown-up person by their name. If you would call a grown-up person by their first name, you would get such a beating. It would just be instant and very severe. So these things, but it's not that you necessarily respect them, but again, you were taught, at least if someone is older, you cannot call them, you call them specific words. In that way you show your respect. How deep is the respect? Obviously not that deep, because it is just external. But it helped quite a bit. It helped quite a bit. The same thing is there in your school, for example, where there's certain things you can say to a teacher or not. The moment the person is a teacher, you have to treat them in a certain way, a certain style of respect. And these principles, they help. They help to regulate beings who are by nature offensive. In our mind, we are naturally offensive. So therefore, because of the modes of passion and ignorance, so therefore there is these external principles of culture, where it helps to keep things in check. Because if people would just have to say what is actually happening in their minds, then you can imagine what will happen to the world. Then things would go very crazy. So at least these external forms of respect, they help to protect us. And in Vedic culture we see so much external principles of culture is related to respect. Offering our obeisances when we enter into the temple, offering our obeisance to the spiritual master, all things that are aimed to help us. Because at least it starts with the body. And then hopefully it can help towards the words. And then at a certain point it will help to change the mind. So therefore these external things are important. But we have to understand that the ultimate respect shown to the spiritual master is not these external things. The real highest form of respect, the core of respect to the spiritual master, to Lord Krishna and to the Vedas is to obey. That is the real respect. Then there is respect. Because at that point it means that now you are valuing and you are accepting that the Supreme Lord and that my spiritual master, that his desire is more important. That is the most important thing. So therefore Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the devotee has many, many qualities. But the Swarup Lakshana, The central quality of the devotee, the core quality, the primary quality from which all other qualities develop, is surrender. The surrender of the devotee, which means to obey the Supreme Lord and to listen to the spiritual master. And therefore we see it was interesting that when Prabhupada came to the Western world, into a time of the 60s where the whole mood of the era was to disrespect authority. The whole mood of the era was to rebel against authority, to pull down all your authorities. The mood was, do not trust anyone over 30. It was sort of the hippie era slogan. It was all about very lack of respect and a rebellious nature. But Prabhupada came in, and it was very interesting. So these people, at that time, the mood obviously was not one of great respect. And also people did not grow up in the Vedic culture. So they had no idea of what the respect is that is supposed to be shown to the spiritual master, or to a saintly person, to a sadhu. No idea. Prabhupada was just he was a beggar. And when he came in India, he was a saintly gentleman that had the opportunity to go meet the president. He met the president of India before. He met very rich people. He could wait outside a rich person's business, and if they would see him, they would stop him and ask him. That's how he met Sumati Morarji. He sat outside the steps of the Scindia steamship company, and then she would see him walking past, and then one day she walked up and she said, Swamiji, what do you want? Why are you here? But in this culture, when he came to America, he wasn't a sadhu anymore. He was just a beggar. He was just a poor old Indian man that was loitering in the streets. And that was it, nothing else. No respect or no value for what this person is. But we see that then his initial band of disciples, what was it that made them disciples? What was it that ultimately connected them to Prabhupada? Even though it was not the externals of culture or the externals of respect. It was the fact that they would listen to him. It was the fact that somehow they started to surrender to him. They started to take his instructions seriously, even though they couldn't really follow the externals of culture. So therefore we see that is the Swarup Lakshana, that is the core. It is from that everything else develops. And that submissiveness, that surrender, that develops then later into deeper forms of respect. And then the Vedic culture becomes meaningful. Then when we offer our obeisance to the spiritual master, when we perform worship of the spiritual master, of the Supreme Lord, it becomes deep, because it is connected with that real spirit. So therefore, respect is very important for the disciple, very important for any devotee to cultivate the proper mood of respect, because it is that respect that ultimately connects us with Krishna, connects us with the spiritual master. And in the absence of that, we will not be able to really move forward in spiritual life, and our practices will stay weak, because the holy name only reveals himself to those individuals that are respectful towards the Lord and also all the devotees. Now, at the same time, it has to be understood that therefore respect, ultimately, it cannot be faked. It cannot be a fake thing. So therefore, the onus is also on those individuals to be respectful. Otherwise, Vedic culture, otherwise the externals of culture turns into a sham, turns into a charade, just a play, where people are acting respectful, but there is no real respect, because there is not real surrender. Therefore, Prabhupada said that what destroyed Vedic culture, what is it that destroyed Vedic culture, is the idea of hereditary saintliness. The idea that one can be born a Brahmana, one can be born in a superior position. That idea, that simple idea, completely destroyed the whole Vedic culture. Why is that? Because ultimately, to be a Brahmana or to be a sadhu means one has to manifest certain qualities. And in the absence of those qualities, one is a Brahmana bandhu, a Brahmana in name only, just by name. But by your actual qualities, you are not manifesting the real symptoms of what it means like. And therefore, one cannot, even if one tries one best, one cannot deeply be respectful to such a person, because one cannot surrender to that person. So therefore, one can be externally nice, and one can say sweet words, and one can offer flowers, but one cannot really respect the person, because one cannot surrender to him. And why would one? Because there is no spiritual benefit in it. And therefore we would read, if you read about There are some interesting biographies of the period post Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Bengal. Then you read about the caste, the Goswami system, where you then had a group of people who acted as gurus or acted as the promoters of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. But they were not sadhus, ultimately. They were just normal materialistic people. And that were somehow born into these families. And the whole culture of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the whole culture of Krishna consciousness just became a hoax. It just became a family function where you have a guru, your family has a guru, and then the guru would come once a year, and then you would feed him nicely, and you would worship him, and you would give him money, and then he would go again, and you go on with your business, you go on with your own life. And then it becomes not real, because then where's the surrender? Where's the principle of obeying the instructions of the saintly people? But it is not just the weakness on the side of the practitioner, but the person himself has to manifest those qualities. So therefore, one has to be very careful in Krishna consciousness, both ways, to always ourselves be respectful and understand that it is a respectful attitude that connects us to superior personalities. And at the same time, as we stick around the Krishna consciousness, to understand that at a certain point, and much sooner than you would think, you would have to become a recipient of respect. In any position, even if you're just a devotee on the street distributing books, people have to have respect for you, otherwise why would they buy that book? By buying a book, for example, it means they are showing respect, they are valuing what you are offering. But therefore, so very soon even in Krishna consciousness, one has to become respectful. One has to become a person that is worthy of respect. And it is a great burden, and it immediately places one onto, put some pressure on a person. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, what he would do is he would always keep his temples in debt. The moment that they generate some money, he would spend it. He would buy something or make a festival, so that they always stay in debt. Because he said, if you're always in debt, it means you will always have to go out to preach in order to have people give donations. And people will only give donations to you if they respect you. And the only way that you will be respectable is if you are properly practicing Krishna consciousness. So therefore, I always keep my temples in debt. Otherwise, what will happen is you will save money, then you don't have to preach anymore. Then you will simply eat and sleep. And then, because why do you need? Where's the pressure? It's very interesting that ultimately we need some pressure to keep us going. And we have to be careful then to understand that respectability comes from becoming empowered by Krishna, and it is generated through sacrifice, austerity, and service. Ultimately, is what generates the goodwill of Krishna and generates the good qualities that makes one eligible to help other people. And but the one thing that has to be understood is that this empowerment, this spiritual energy that is generated through the performance of devotional service is never our property, because at any moment it can be taken away. That has to be understood. When Prabhupada says how the living being, he is not the energetic, that's what it means. It means we do not own any energy. All energy that we have, it is something that is given to us by Krishna. And that is why anything is a source of empowerment. And therefore, even in spiritual life, at any moment, Krishna can withdraw his empowerment. And therefore, we have to always stay ultimately in a helpless position. Because even if one can become greatly empowered at one instance, just the next day, it can all be removed. So therefore, one has to understand that is never one's property. And therefore, one has to always continually serve Krishna. And even though the nature of that service might change with time, but it must always be there, and ultimately must be practiced with the right mood. Because therefore, it is not just by doing things that we will get Krishna's mercy. It is by doing things with the right intention. Otherwise, even all our service will not generate proper results. Because we see that Krishna explains how sacrifices performed, only sacrifice performed for Krishna's sake will generate spiritual results. If sacrifice is performed for the sake of gaining honor or prestige, then these sacrifices are in the mode of passion, and they will generate no result. So therefore, also in our service, we have to be very, very careful. And we have to also understand in the 11th canto a very nice verse that explains Yovaivan manasi samyak asangyachan diyagati tasya vratam tapodanam sravatyama gatam bhuvat. A transcendentalist who does not completely control his words and mind by superior intelligence will find that his spiritual vows, austerities and charity flow away just as water flows out of an unbaked clay pot. So therefore, to become a proper vessel for Krishna's empowerment is also important. And here we see Maharaj Parikshit ultimately expressing the ultimate goal in life, and also how it is that one becomes qualified to receive it. Because that's what we see. When he sat down at that point next to the Ganges, he was very determined, and he was a very perfect recipient of Shukadev's mercy. And therefore, he was chosen as the recipient of the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, a very honorable position, due to, ironically enough, even though it was disrespect of a Brahmana that got him in that position, it is because of his deep respect for Krishna and for the spiritual master that he was chosen as the individual to be suitable to hear Shukadev speak. So a great aspiration for all of us, a very nice verse actually to memorize, to keep in mind what exactly it is that we want in life. Because it is our desires that, these desires are the goals that direct us in our spiritual life. Okay, let us hear if there are any questions or any comments, or anything that has been said today. Nothing today,
There's a comment by one of our viewers.
Yes.
It says the opposite of offense is respect, and then she says etiquette is an external way of showing respect.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes on to say, I appreciate the point that our external etiquette and culture helps to regulate the mind's natural tendency to disrespect others, in parentheses, due to conditioning by the material modes of nature. This is a very helpful point.
Thank you. Yes, the purpose of culture. Anything else? Grantara Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Nittai Go Premanande.